Hello everyone and welcome back to another deck update. I say update, but this is basically a brand new deck from my original build of the Elfnote Roses deck, and that's because the original deck was built on using Black Garden, the field spell, to just lock the opponent out of the game. And so we needed Medius to search it, and it cost 51 points, so we didn't really have a whole lot for non-engine, and especially with points updates since then, that deck is in a pretty rough spot, but even when it was the original build, it was not terribly good. It was funny, haha. This deck, conversely, is built to be good. And in fact, I've taken this to locals and won already. It's a good deck. I'll say that right now. So let's go over the choices here. Instead of playing a bunch of hand traps, we're on a bunch of board breakers, and that's because with the 51 points left over, along with what we, would have had, we're looking at 64 points for non-engine. That's because we need one Power Patron, we need one Bramble Rose, and then I have opted into the one Chaos Angel. It's incredibly easy to make a Light Dark Chaos Angel as part of your end board in this deck. But that leaves us with 64 points, and I'm dumping it all into going second tools. And that's because I think right now, in Yu-Gi-Oh! In general, going second cards are infinitely more powerful than one-for-one hand traps. I don't even call them one for one anymore. I call them one for a half, because things like Ash Blossom only deal with half of the problem nowadays. You aren't fully stopping a combo with Ash. That just never happens anymore. You are stopping a search effect, and then they still have the body, and the body's good enough to get them there. So I don't think Veilers and Imperms and Ashes are good, particularly in Genesis, where those are more expensive than board breakers. So we're playing a whole bunch of board breakers. And originally, I did have more spell-based breakers in this deck, but I threw in some of the Molcharmies, because a couple of the Elfnote lines, basically the primary Elfnote lines, want you to send a card from hand to grave, and it has to be a monster. So this just like shores up the monster count. We don't mind sending off a Vengeful Witch or a Black Knight we open and don't need, but shoring up the monster count a little bit is nice, and then we still have Heavy Storm Chain Droplet, which is the Genesis OTK. People are prepared for a Molcharmy. They're prepared to get Veilered. They're not prepared for Heavy Storm Chain Droplet. That just wipes out most people. And so that's our non-engine. That's why we're on this list, and it's kind of a beast. 11 pieces of really nasty, powerful non-engine. You could be playing Illusion Gate if you have it. I don't have them. I'm not going to get them until they're cheaper. Like, price is a real thing, y'all. So I don't have them. If you have them, maybe swap out one or two of the Dark Holes for them. Throw the Dark Holes in the side. Maybe swap them to Cyclones if you're doing that. So for the individual engines, here's what our purposes are here. You may have seen Rose Dragons run with Azamina and or Adventure before, because this deck is a 2-card combo deck that is very vulnerable to interaction, so you kind of have to play Rose Dragons alongside something that sets up an early negate. In here, that is the Elfnotes, because they are low points, and they work in other ways as well with the Rose Dragons. And how we're setting up a negate here is off of either Welcome Home or Tinia, sending a card from hand. You can then get to a Crystal Wing Synchro Dragon under Droll or Nib. Obviously, Droll's not a huge issue right now, but under Nib is very important. And then that also protects you from like Veiler or anything else. Again, just hand traps are bad, y'all. But that gets us to protection under basically anything. And then we can do the Rose Dragon thing, which is very powerful, but is a 2-card combo engine. So it's a little bit vulnerable, very, very vulnerable to hand traps. So the roses get us to a negate, but we also get Strelitzia out of the deal so that we can summon back more interaction on the opponent's turn. We get, Rhapsodia out of the deal, which is another negate. So that's one Omni negate, one monster negate off of the Elfnotes engine, possibly Strelitzia, summon back Tinia for a hand rip. And then the Rose Dragons themselves, for their part, can synchro with leftover Elfnote's bodies into Wolf Riot. That's why I'm playing Red Rose at 3, because you can just synchro with a leftover Elfnote body after it gets interrupted or at the end of your combo into Wolf Riot, which triggers Red Rose to summon out Rox Rose, and once you get Rox Rose on the field, you can do the full Rose Dragons thing, which can set up the Light Dark Chaos Angel plus Bramble Rose plus maybe Arms of Genex Return 0, for which we have at least one of every attribute except for Earth. There's just not like a gray line to put an Earth in the graveyard. I thought about maybe Desert Locust, but you have to change how the extra deck looks quite a bit to make that work, and I just didn't think it was worth it. But we can put, water, fire, light, dark, and wind in the grave to banish for Arms of Genex for a negate and destroy, which is pretty tight. So yeah, that's the game plan here, is use the Elfnotes to either bait out interaction or set up a negate early, then drop a Rose Dragon and just go hamskis on some really, really powerful synchro plays. We can set Droplet. Droplet, I think, is an incredible card, just going first or second. Normally we'll have a dead card in hand, or we can send off like Welcome Home or something to use it as an interaction on the opponent's turn as well, and no one expects the set Droplet. And for the Rose engine as well, we're playing 3 Basil Rose Shoots. I've been supremely impressed by this card. I wasn't particularly before, but the fact that you can summon out like Red Rose and save your normal summon for a Black Knight or a Rox Rose is really, really good, and it also is just kind of the premier way to make Arms of Genex Return 0 and Chaos Angel, because you can normally make one as part of a combo if you open the Elfnotes engine and the Rose Dragon engine. It's pretty trivial to make the Light Dark Chaos Angel, but then if you also have Rose Shoot, you can bring back a name as a tuner to make Arms of Genex Return 0 too. So it extends you towards the end of your combo, it can extend you through interaction early, just a much better card than it looks like at first read. And then 3 Black Rose Gardens is important as extension, because if you only open the Rose Dragon engine, you normal summon Rox Rose, you go to search, if that gets ashed, you have to have this in hand to do anything else, basically. That's one of the reasons we want to open the Elfnotes and the Rose Dragon engine, because it is just more resilient. But in the event that you only open the Rox Rose, Black Rose also lets you extend, and Black Rose is technically a starter because you can play it, go search Rox Rose, normal Rox Rose, then add Vengeful Witch because she does mention Black Rose Dragon, so you can still do combo at that point. It's just like abbreviated, you don't get to go through White Rose, so it's a little bit worse. But it is a starter for the engine. It's the best extender for the engine. Very good card. If you can get your hand on 3 of them, definitely play it. Funny enough, speaking about that, Elfnote Lucina is by far the most expensive part of this engine, and she is the one I am least happy to see, because if you start Lucina, it takes your normal summon, which means you then can't do the Rose Dragon stuff unless you also open like Rox Rose and Basil Rose Shoot. So I'm least happy about Lucina, but I think she is powerful enough to still justify the 3. It's just funny that by far the most expensive card in the archetype is like it's but anyways, that should be a good overview of what we're trying to do. Let's go see it in action with some combos. Okay, first up, this is just the Elfnote stuff, basically just getting you to a couple of negates. You're meant to do this before you start the Rose stuff, but even if it's all you open, it's still a few disruptions, so it's not too bad. And we start by special summoning out Tinia. You can also do this off Welcome Home, plus anything to send in hand. It works okay, but then you have to go through Lucina and use your normal and blah blah blah. Tinia is the best one here, but we can go Tinia, place Welcome Home. Welcome Home, pitch any monster from hand that is not fire, so Fuelos works just fine. Most things in the deck work just fine. Summon out Power Patron, then Synchro for Strelitzia. If you don't fear God, then you can use Power Patron on that first summon. I do, so I do not use Power Patron's Graveyard effect yet, because I bring it right back with Strelitzia, then synchro with it again into Crystal Wing, and then you can use its effect to search with a negate on board. That gets us Fortuna. We can go Fortuna, place Rhapsodia, send the Fortuna, summon back Strelitzia, who on the opponent's turn can summon back like Tinia or the Power Patron, and we can use Rhapsodia to get into what the heck's her name? I can never remember. Junora. Like, we can get to a good number of disruptions here. We've got 2 negates on board. We can get the Hand Rip and or Junora to negate the board. So it's pretty solid in and of itself, but its primary goal is to get to Crystal Wing Synchro Dragon before you normal summon a Rose Dragon. Then we've got the Rose Dragon combo. This is just the Rose Dragon part of the deck. We're hoping to open both. But if you just open the Rose Dragon and any other card to discard at a later point in the combo, then you can normal summon Rox Rose, use its effect to go get Black Rose Garden, activate Black Rose to go get White Rose, summon out the White Rose because you have a monster that mentions Rose Dragon. Then you can synchro the 2 of them off into a 7. Brambles is the best on a board that isn't going to be able to extend like crazy, I think. But if you've got other stuff, that can be like Perialis here. Or if you need to break a board, it could just be Black Rose. I don't know how they're going to let you make a Black Rose if they have a board established, but, you know, it's a possibility. And then you can Foolish Vengeful Witch off of White Rose Dragon's effect when used as Synchro Material. Then she can pitch any random card in hand to summon out Twilight Rose Black Knight. Black Knight brings back the Vengeful Witch, and again, you can make a 7 here, which interestingly can be like Strelitzia if you need to get to that, like they stopped you from having access to the Power Patron or something. Then you can do that, but you can also just make another 7. You could rank up. We don't have an 8 that you can make in this position. But here, because we can't really do a lot of extension, I'm just going to modulate Witch down, and then we're going to go into our 6 Rage Rose Witch, and we're just going to send the Licorice Lily Reaper. This is a more controlling build. I'm not doing full-on crazy stuff. I'm not playing like the circular package, which could help us extend further at this point at the cost of another discard. I'm not doing that. If you open just this stuff, a lot of the time it's good enough because Lily Reaper lets you send an opponent's card to grave. Bramble's just gonna burn the opponent for 1,000,000. Rage Rose is protecting herself and Brambles. And you have a board wipe just in case you need it that also burns for like 6,000 when you do it. It's not a completely unbeatable end board, but it's got follow-up from Brambles, and it's good enough in most cases, and it's protected. It's a good Genesis end board, not a combo Genesis end board. Cool? Cool. And then lastly, putting it all together, this is if you open the Elfnotes combo. Again, Tinia is the best one, but you can do it with other stuff, and the Rose Dragon combo, and Red Rose is the best for this, but again, Rox Rose does just fine, and then any single monster to send and anything else to discard. That sounds like a lot. It really isn't that hard to assemble. The deck is built to open both engines, and then these can just be whatever. So let's get started. So Tinia, we can special summon out, and this is going to be the the Elfnotes part of the combo again, pretty much the exact same as it was before. But here, when you send Elfnote Power Patron to grave, you can grab Lucina, but our board is about to become very, very cloggy, and the combo actually works out more cleanly if you just go into Fortuna. So we can summon out the Fortuna, use her effect to place the trap face up. We've got pretty much the Elfnote end board at this point if we wanted to stop, but we can now do Rose Dragon stuff. So we normal summon the Red Rose, synchro into Wolf Riot with him and the Elfnote Fortuna, which is going to trigger Red Rose to summon out Rox Rose to add Black Rose Garden. We can activate Black Rose Garden to go get White Rose Dragon, and now we've got full combo here as well. So we can summon out White Rose Dragon, and then there's a couple of things you can do at that position. Again, the deck's pretty flexible because it's a 2-card combo deck. You could make Brambles there, but I like, because we've got 2 very scary Synchro Boss monsters out already, I want to go into Light Dark Chaos Angel here. So I make Perialis, who is going to be the light for our Chaos Angel. That's going to trigger White Rose to Foolish because we haven't used the Witch part of the deck yet. So then we can summon out our Twilight Rose Black Knight by pitching our whatever other random card, and then he can bring back Witch. Again, this part's a little bit flexible. I think this is the best way into interaction, because if the opponent Ghost Bells you here, you don't even need to negate it. You can just use Perialis, bring back Strelitzia, and you'll see what I mean in a second. But here we're going to go Black Knight, summon back the Vengeful Witch, but we're not actually going to synchro with the Vengeful Witch. We're going to make Chaos Angel with the Perialis. You can use the Perialis before you do that if you need to get a body on field, because we're making our light there, Chaos Angel. Then we're going to send off whatever body, the Vengeful Witch here, to summon back Strelitzia, so we still have that. We literally have an unused resource in the combo that there's no way to optimize just because the board gets cloggy. So, like, it's good. It's a good deck, in my opinion. So here we have our entire board protected by Chaos Angel, as well as the Strelitzia is protected, where is it, by card effects. Actually, thinking about it, I hadn't thought about this until literally right now, but you could put the Chaos Angel in the center and the Strelitzia elsewhere, and then Welcome Home is protecting Chaos Angel from, like, board breakers, which is pretty nasty. But that's maybe not correct, because Strelitzia represents more disruptions in the middle monster zone either way. You know, like, there's just, it's a nasty board. You've got a monster negate, you got an omni negate, you can spin the opponent's board for a board wipe, you can bring back, like, Tinia for a hand rip, and Power Patron, depending on how the opponent's turn works out. Chaos Angel's protecting everybody. It's real nasty, y'all. It's not that hard to put together. Cool? Cool. Alright, Elfnote Rose's games, they're not going to be the absolute best games this week. I didn't have a whole lot of time to play, but they can show you what the deck does. It's not a big deal. We are going second up against Heroes for this first one. And we've got no interaction. We don't do hand traps. That's not our thing, but we open this Heavy Storm, and that could be useful for us. Except Heroes is very much a monster combo deck. They're gonna be mostly in the front row, where Heavy Storm can't do a whole lot. But we'll see what we can do. We can make Black Rose Dragon and all that sorts of stuff. I don't know where they spent their points here yet. But they're just setting up, like, Contrast, which is one, like, Omni Negate, basically. It has to target, but it's an Omni Negate. And then Sunrise to make stuff big and protect something from battle. Okay, well, we're gonna rip the Heavy Storm, and they'll go Mask Change. Unfortunately, they have Dark Law. That's where their points went, so now we have to figure out a way to get rid of Dark Law. They use Contrast on the Lucina, which makes our job incredibly easy. If they had let the Lucina go, and they negated the Black Rose Dragon, we did have a line to get Fortuna and then eventually clear the board, but it would have been a lot more messy and we would have lost a lot more resources doing so. So the negate was incorrect, but that's fine. It just makes our job easy. So we can blow up the board, go into Tinia, and that's full Elfnote combo from there. And we've got the Rose Dragon. We can't actually normal summon the Rose Dragon because we had to normal summon the Power Patron. But, like, we can send Rose Dragon, get Fortuna, get a negate online, yada yada. We're fine. We're fine at this point. We'll have 2 disruptions into a 1-card hand. Cool, cool. Game 2, we're going first up against Dark World, and our hand sucks, but we'll make it work. Because we specifically have Basil Rose Shoot, we can use that to special summon out the Red Rose Dragon so that we can normal summon Fualos to get to a 7, but that triggers Red Rose to summon out Rox Rose, and from here we're fine. It's just that the hand was really, really fragile if the opponent had anything. They did not, thankfully, so we can just do a big Rose Dragon combo here, and you can see the power of specifically the Rose Dragons. All we had was normal summon Red and something to synchro with, and we can get to Chaos Angel plus Rage Rose to protect our stuff from destruction, including the Chaos Angel, who is unaffected by monster effects and indestructible in battle, but the Rage Rose makes him indestructible by, like, lightning storms and things as well, which is really cool, just extra protection. And the Bramble Rose. Unfortunately, they rip Santa Claus in game 1, And so they can just take out the Chaos Angel before it becomes a problem. Okay, well that's annoying, but we can burn you for as much as we can. Eventually wipe the board. The Rhapsodia is nothing here. Our stuff is still protected. We're fine. Like, I don't know. I don't know what Fiendsmith's doing here, but they're doing Dark World combos. They're gonna kill themselves trying to do Dark World combos. So they make an Excel Synchro Stardust Dragon, bring back, go into Levelizable. I kind of had assumed that was coming, but figured we were fine to wait until they actually did it, get as much burn as possible off of the Bramble Rose, then go into Black Rose, force out the Levelizable here. Just, like, they've used a lot of resources already at this point. We know they have a Gates of Dark World in hand and one unknown. I figure what's the damage they could actually do. So they go Levelizable, tribute itself to steal the Black Rose, which is probably incorrect because it leaves us with the rest of our board still, but I think they were mostly worried about Black Rose Garden blowing up and killing them, which it wouldn't have at this point, but it was very close. But they managed to get Kushano back and Genta's Engrave, so they can bring back that and do some stuff, and unfortunately they drew into a second Gates of Dark World, which means they can kind of do the whole thing again. But none of their levels really line up, so they're kind of just going to end Grapha in a dream. It's like not a big deal here. They only have the attack to get over one of our guys. They swing over Rage Rose instead of Santa. I think it was probably correct during... you know what? Santa gives us the draw either way, so I guess it was correct just to go there. But she can come back anyways, and destroying one of our cards gives us Rocks Rose, which means we have plenty of follow-up, because we can also banish Bramble, and we top deck the Black Rose Garden, which is a great top deck. So, like, in just the Grapha, this isn't going to do it, because we can afford to go Black Rose, pop the board, ourselves included, burn them for 7 million damage, and then just do full combo from there. We actually use the second effect of Black Rose Dragon, surprisingly, because we have Basil Rose Shoot. Unfortunately, it summons in defense, so we have to bring Black Rose back in defense, but we can use the second effect to banish Vengeful Witch to change their monster to attack and change its attack to 0, and then just get in for lethal with the Rocks Rose Dragon. So, you know, that was an okay game. Like, I don't know what the Dark World player was trying to do here necessarily. They're main decking the Santa Claus is kind of cute and cheeky because you can search it off of Fiendsmith's Tract. I don't know what the Fiendsmith are really doing here outside of that. But the rest of the Dark World and Fabled stuff actually looked pretty cool. So that's neat. Cool. And we're back with closing thoughts on Elven Rose's Elfnote Rose Dragon. On this deck. So, the deck I think is rather good as it is, and my one complaint that I will make is that we oftentimes open one engine or the other, and I would like a consistent bridge, but they're just, like, really isn't one without playing Medius. You can't easily reduce the levels of the elf notes to let us get into Rage Rose Witch. And even if we did, then we don't have the Rose Dragons, we just have the abbreviated engine to our names. So there isn't a great way to bridge, but thankfully in the new set Blazing Dominion upcoming here in just a couple of weeks, we will be getting Elfnote Regina, and, you know, whenever I actually manage to pick those up, I'm sure they're going to be nightmarishly expensive, but whenever I do manage to pick those up, that gives us a lot better chances of seeing what we want out of the Elfnote engine. We could go down, you know, like a witch, maybe a knight. I hate doing that because this does become a garnet if you do that. And, you know, just trim a couple of other guys. Maybe we don't need all 3 Rose Shoots. We probably don't need all 3 Lucinas. And play the 3 Reginas. And Regina's great because not only is she a turn 0 play, we probably keep in the Lucinas just because we need something to send. Not only is she a turn 0 play, it's not like the most impressive turn 0 play. You get like a Sheng Ying or something and follow-up out of it. But it just summons Tinia from the deck, so that's 3 more copies of Tinia. Maybe we go down the Welcome Homes, at least, like, one or two of those, but again, we kind of want something to pitch for Regina. I don't know, I'll figure that out when we get there. But when you get her, it's 3 more copies of Tinia, so that's 3 more cards in your deck that you can use to get to your negate. That's 3 more starters for the Elfnote engine. And so it just makes, like, seeing both engines more consistent just by virtue of having more names. I'm not... Again, I think maybe we trim, like, some Rose Shoots because it's not a starter, but it is quite good. But it gets worse if we don't need to use Lucina, Search, Power Patron, Normal Summon Power Patron as often. So we could probably afford to cut 1 or 2. So that's going to be fixed in the next set. My one complaint will be partially fixed just by virtue of having more starters for this one particular side of the deck. Outside of that, you know, board breakers, I think, are underrated. Just Blind Second, I think it might be underrated in Genesis. The ability to just, like, pop out Black Rose Dragon out of nowhere is terrifying, especially when you have follow-up. If you have a whole nother engine, or, you know, half of your first engine still to go through, special Tinia, special Power Patron, Synchro for Black Rose, Power Patron Search. Not only does that chain block the Black Rose Dragon, it gets you follow-up, so you can rose the board and then keep going, which is very, very powerful to be able to do. Getting to a negate before hand traps, obviously incredibly powerful to do. Dark Light Chaos Angel, obviously incredibly powerful and difficult in most decks to do. Arms of Gen X Return 0 is disgusting in a deck that puts a bunch of attributes in grave like this. Just a very powerful deck that will be getting support in a form that is very good for the deck. And it will look a little bit different after that. But even right now, I think the deck is quite good. So that will be it for this week, guys. I hope you liked it, and I hope to see you next time. Bye-bye.